Okay guys, so this is a video spawned off my last video, or maybe 2 videos ago, where I fished the BFL at Rayburn, and I made comments about the payout, and this is kind of a 2-part, 3-part thing maybe. Part of it's going to be a survey. I'm curious everybody's take on this, and we'll get to that here in the first couple of slides. But then also, I was curious, and I have to admit, I had a little bit of preconceived bias about this, but I was curious how the payout from the BFLs go, and I was, I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but it was not exactly what I thought it would be. So let's just kind of dive into this. So if you remember what happened at the first BFL, I cashed a tiny check of 40th something place for $150 on a $220 entry fee. And this is the payout from the BFL. This is the actual payout from that tournament in January, 211 boaters. And basically anybody 39th place or lower didn't even get their entry fee back. So forget paying your expenses, forget practice, forget pulling the boat. My co-angler gave me 40 or 50, I think he gave me $40, which is probably what most co-anglers give. I've certainly have some give more in the past, but I've been stiffed as well, so frankly, any little bit's appreciated. But it really got me to start thinking, does this kind of a payout make sense? And so that's the question I want to pose to you guys. So, and interesting, I'm curious if they've actually changed their payout. So in 2022, they paid 20% of the field. That was basically 1 in every 5 fishermen is what was paid in the BFLs that I looked at last year, and I looked at almost all of them. But then at the first tournament this year, they paid 24.17% or something like that of the field, which is almost 1 in 4. So I don't know if they've changed the formula or if the Rayburn tournament for some reason was some kind of an anomaly. But I guess that's my first question. Have they changed that? But truthfully, I don't think it matters, at least not to me. You guys heard me make the comment that I don't go fishing to get participation trophies. And so if you look at the payouts, I came up with 2, and I apologize that this is so hard to read, but I came up with 2 alternate, and again, I just was kind of thinking out loud or making this up as I was going. So I kind of just spreadsheeted the numbers here. What would happen if they went to a 1 in 6 and then even a 1 in 7 payout? Still paying a lot of places, right? But now your bottom check is supposed to be in something less than even your entry fee. And by the way, I basically kind of left the top 7-ish places the same payout. I think you could certainly monkey with that a little bit, but to me, if you win it, you're pretty happy. You got some pretty good money out of it. Even top 3, you made a couple $1,000. It's down the line where you're not getting paid. So I guess my question to you guys is, would you rather see them to move to something like this, a 1 in 6 payout or even a 1 in 7 payout, so that there's actually some kind of a decent payout if you cash a check? If you can say to your buddies, I got a check, you actually got a check and you actually covered some of your expenses. So that's the question. That's the survey part of this. If you would, answer it in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how this goes. And I know some BFL folks actually watch my videos, so maybe we'll get a little bit of traction with them. And then secondly, I got to thinking. So the payout in that first tournament was, well, let's just take a look at it. So $220 entry fee, 211 boats. I'm just talking about on the boater side. Was a $46,000 purse, and they paid $33,000 back out of that purse. And that works out to, well, it's not a great number. It's a whopping 71%. And in comparison, well, you know what? I'm not going to do that yet. I'll do some comparisons later. But 71%, and that ignores the $95 they charge you to join the organization. So right off the bat, I'm not at all excited about the payout. But, of course, Major League Fishing / BFL and FLW, long before Major League Fishing, this is pretty much a similar payout to what they've always had. Their argument has always been, yeah, but we got regionals, we got a wild card, we got AllAmerican. So they're right, they do. So there's more money if you fish all of these. And so I dug deeper into those. And by the way, these are all real numbers right off of their website last year. And the first thing I needed to understand was how many fishermen actually fished the BFL. So this is the divisions last year. I looked at the count of tournament anglers in the first, the third, and the fifth tournament. And the first thing I was trying to drive at was how much did they collect in those $95 fees, right? So to do that, I had to do some basic math. Now, a couple things here that I know my number is not dead on correct. I sort of assume that, and I think this is correct, across all the divisions, the most fishermen are in that first tournament. And I think these numbers bear that out. Now, what I will also say is, so I counted up the number of fishermen just in the first tournaments, 4,105 fishermen. And I acknowledge that some guys fish multiple divisions, but I also think that that's weighed against the fact that you've got guys who actually potluck the second, third, fourth, or fifth tournament because it's their home lake. So I don't think this number is too terribly far off when you consider, again, that there's multiple factors weighing into this, and I'm just trying to get a ballpark figure here. So you figure about 4,105, and by the way, that gives about 171 anglers on average per tournament in that first tournament, and I'm going to break these numbers down further in another conversation, probably in part 2 of this video. But so you got about 4,105 anglers spending $95 to join the organization, right? So kind of, again, looking at the numbers, 171 average anglers, 24 divisions, $95 per angler. They're collecting about another $390,000 in membership fees. A lot of money flowing in membership fees. And then we also have the tournaments. So this is why it was important to get the other numbers. So 139 and a half anglers on average per tournament, and they retain 29% of the purse. So 4 regular events, each division, 24 divisions, times 139 anglers, times $220 entry fee is $2.9 million in entry fees. And then, of course, each tournament, each circuit also, each division also has a super tournament where the entry fee is $330. So that's another $1.1 million in total entry fees paid into the BFL divisions each year. So for the moment, let's just sort of round numbers here. $4 million coming in. They keep about $1.2 million of that, plus about another $400,000 from the memberships. So there's about $1.5 roughly million that they take in that they don't pay out. So if we think back to that original, or one of those original slides, their argument is, hey man, we got all these regional events where we pay all this money out, so I broke them down too. Now, I'm only showing you Region 1 and Region 6, or 6 regions, but I looked at all of them, and the numbers are pretty similar across all the regions. So they look like this. So all 150, 160-ish fishermen in each division, $330 entry fee. So you figure the average entry fees taken in the low 50s. All of them payouts. And by the way, for now, I'm ignoring in all these numbers Phoenix money, and I'll talk about that later. But so you got about 50,000 taken in, and in every case, they're paying out a little bit over $100,000. So at the regional level, it's a 200% payout. And so I kind of then threw that down, and I said, okay, well, that's, $58,000, $57,000 over 6 regions per region. That is payback coming from somewhere. And that's what we're driving at here. For all the money they take in, what exactly are they paying out? So that's $348,000 if we figure at $58,000 per tournament across 5 tournaments of money they're paying out above what they take in. And then you've got, of course, the All-American. That's what most everybody who fishes BFLs are trying to get to, the All-American. It's a no entry fee tournament, and everybody who qualifies get a $1,500 check. And the All-American last year was on Lake Hamilton in Arkansas, and it had a $293,000 payout with no entry fees. So if you then put all of those numbers together on a spreadsheet, it looks a little bit like this. So paid in about $4 million at the divisional level. Actually, let me say that a different way. $4 million paid in across the 24 divisional tournaments. The four regular tournaments in each division, as well as the super tournament at the end of the year in each division. And then they paid out about let's just call it $2.9 million. And that's a 71% payout, pretty much what they paid out at Rayburn the other day. And then about $400,000 they take in, give or take, for membership fees, of which, of course, they don't pay anything out, but we'll get to that here in just a second. At the regional level, $312,000 in entry fees, $660,000 paid out, a 211% payout. And then at the All-American, a no entry fee tournament, $294,000 paid out. I don't know how you calculate the payout there, but when you pile them all up, you got, roughly an 84% payout. And that is lower than a lot of circuits. And I really went back, and I'm going to talk about some more circuits. I'm going to do a couple more of these videos just for comparison's sake. But 84% is not awful, but it's certainly not top of the heap. You can check them yourself, but I'll talk more about some of these in the future. But I really started thinking hard about the Phoenix money here. And, Phoenix is a big sponsor. It is the title sponsor for Major League Fishing. And they have the Phoenix money that gets paid out across all divisions. And so, again, as I thought about this, Major League Fishing negotiated this deal with Phoenix when Major League Fishing left Ranger, or Ranger left them, however that worked out. And I thought, you got to kind of take that in consideration, because now, granted, you got to buy a $100,000 boat or an $80,000 boat to qualify for this money, but nonetheless, you do qualify for this money. So I went ahead and, just for comparison's sake, I added it back in. And if you add the Phoenix money into the calculation, actually, before we go there, let me just show you what the Phoenix numbers are. And so, by the way, I put a tremendous amount of time into this particular video, mainly because I was just curious myself, but I wanted to put out good content for you guys, and I certainly wanted to be accurate. With the Phoenix, you can win, if you're in a 21 through 23 model boat with a 250 motor, you can win $7,000. You can win $5,000, $3,000, $2,500. And then what they do is their top finisher, if it's not the winner, wins $500. And so I went across every single BFL tournament this year, including all the regionals and the championship. And so in every single event, they paid out at least $500. There was always, because there's always somebody fishing in a Phoenix. So if you finished 22nd and you were the highest finishing Phoenix guy, you won $500. So and by the way, I thought it was kind of interesting here. Other boat manufacturers actually pay more money. Basscat's $7,500 for a BFL winner. I think Ranger's similar. You can actually win more money elsewhere, but I'm looking specifically at the money that, through their arrangements, BFL got set up. Whether that's fair or not, that's your determination. You're the ones who make the decision on to fish these tournaments and pay these entry fees or not. But when I add back to the Phoenix money to the calculation, it obviously helps them some. So going back through all of them, they actually paid out a little over $186,000 to Phoenix owners across those, how many tournaments is that? I don't know how many, 127 tournaments, $186,000. So that gets them up to almost an 88% payout rate, and that's more appropriate to what I see across other tournament circuits. By the way, I've already done some of the research I'm going to share with y'all on some of these other circuits. That's not bad. 88's getting close. It should be 90 or a little bit better. They got a big staff, and they offer you the ability, which most circuits can't, to go up. So if you're trying to move up to which Toyotas, anybody can fish the Toyotas, right? But if you're trying to get on their tour, this is a stepping stone to do it, and the payout's not bad to make that step up. You know what? Actually, let me rephrase that. The payout is pretty good for a stepping stone tournament circuit. How about that? So if you're trying to work your way up into their pro events, it's a pretty good payout. They're not getting you. By the way, I've not done the numbers on the opens this year. I will soon. I'm real curious what those look like. But that's kind of what it looks like. So, what do I take from this? Well, what I take from this is the following. If you are going to fish all these tournaments, if you are going to make the drive to wherever the regional is with the hopes of making some money at the regional, with the hopes of going to All-American and making the All-American, then The payout here is, I'm going to call it fair. It's not great, but I'm going to call it fair. If, however, you're trying to do what I did, which was just fish the first tournament, or just fish a tournament or 2 or 3 tournaments in a year, then not a very good tournament circuit to be jackpotting in. How about that? That's probably the best way to say it. Now, granted, in my case, I could win, an additional $7,500 in bass cap money or $500 for being a top finisher. That certainly helps, but that's got nothing to do with Major League Fishing and how they pay out on this circuit. So, this is a circuit that if you want to fish a circuit, it's not bad if you're willing to fish the regionals, trying to make the All-American. But again, if you're just jackpotting, I think there's much better payouts, and certainly on the team side, there's much better payouts than what you're going to get out of Major League Fishing for these tournaments, or excuse me, for this circuits. So there you go. So that's Major League Fishing's BFLs in a nutshell. That's kind of where the payouts fall. Now, I'm going to come back with another video on Thursday. I'm going to say I've got a little bit of a bone to pick with them about something else, because what you can also do through these circuits is, if you can't fish them all, which I can't this year, you can pay your entry fees, and you can actually pay them on the co-angler side as a boater and still go to a tournament called the Wild Card. And I want to address the Wild Card in my next video on Thursday. I think you're going to find this really interesting, and I think some of us got a good complaint to Major League Fishing about the Wild Cards and the availability of them to a lot of us who live on the western, let's call it, edges of their demographics of where they try to draw anglers out of. So more stuff to come Thursday. I think you'll find it interesting. We're going to break down where their circuits are, where their regionals are, where their wild cards are, and where all the qualifiers come from every year. So stick around. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys come Thursday.